So let's start doing the elements around the water. So all the outdoor elements, the sand here, the rocks, little island patch, the palm tree. So let's get those done. Now for that, I'm probably going to want to pick out a little bit of a different color scheme here. Let's go for mystery. I see we got some nice browns, tans, and whatnot in there. So I'm going to start with this brown. I'm just getting it in. I'm using the airbrush to color it just because it blends nicely with the other colors I'm going to be using over top. I was going to color it all the way to the edge, but I think I'm going to leave it. I might close it in with like a dark border when I'm done, we'll see. But for now I'm just going to leave it. So I'm just getting my preliminary color down here, which is going to be this dark brown for the shadows and the stones. It's not really dark, it's more like a medium brown. But I'm just getting it down for my first color, and I will be adding shading and highlights, of course. Okay. Now let's go over to our little island here and start coloring that. Just missed the spot of water here. I'm just trying to touch it up. So just get it in there. Don't worry about making it perfect. Do stay within the lines in this instance because we've already done our water. And we don't really necessarily need to want to do it again, right? So put a little bit of a darker brown there, which is fine. Then I'm going to deepen it up even more. And where it looks like there's shadowing, where you can see the lines from the sketched drawing, I'm actually going to add the shadows in there. There's always hints on how to color your picture with grayscale. They always kind of give you hints on where your shading should be based on the picture, and it does come in handy and help with practice. And then you'll find when you go and do line art, you'll make up your own places of where you think shading should be, and it'll turn out wonderfully. It's almost like practice, really. Too much like that. There. Now, this is a little bit, I'm not going to do the sand light because there is a lot of shading here for the sand. It's almost like it was meant to be a sunset. there, we got our shading in. Now I'm gonna get some highlights in there for where the sun might be hitting. So I'm gonna grab this lighter tan color and I'm going to lightly brush it across the edges. Where, of course, I think the light would be hitting. And then over here, I'm going to do the same. Although I don't think the light would be hitting this too much, I'm just going to add a little bit of highlight in there anyways, just because I think it adds an overall nice effect to the island kind of being out in the middle. And then I'm going to highlight these ripples in the sand as well. Isn't it fun coloring beach scenes? I love coloring beach scenes. Makes me wish I was there. So relaxing too. Relaxing to create something pretty. And I'm going to lighten up that color even more. And I'm just going to add an even deeper highlight around the rock, but small. I don't want to completely take over that shade that I've already kind of put in there. I just kind of want to add a little bit of deeper highlighting. Just in certain areas. You don't have to go overboard with it. I never really talked about what this piece is from. It's from the Grayscale collection and of landscapes. So if you're interested in recreating this or just coloring it in your own style, it's there for you guys to grab and play with. I'm certainly having a lot of fun coloring it. Okay, so the sand, I mean, it's more dark out because the boat's kind of in the way. I just want to try something here. Kind of adding some highlighting speckles, if you will. So it kind of looks like the sand is sparkling a bit. Just where the sun would be hitting. just shading this area here because I kind of missed it. Going over some highlights. Okay, I think the rocks and such are looking pretty complete here. I'm gonna get a broader highlight just kind of going down the rock. And I think that looks pretty good for now. We'll reevaluate our picture when we get closer to being done. Now I'm going to color in the foliage on the island here. I'm going to use a dark green. And I'm just filling in the grass and shrubs, taking my time, keeping it neat, keeping it clean. There we got in our green shrubbery. And you can add some, I'm not going to highlight this actually too much, just in some of the lighter parts because you want to kind of show light going through this grass, right? Light tends to penetrate foliage and kind of shines through a bit, so we're just going to do a little bit of highlighting. We're not going to go crazy with it. Or we could go crazy and just go wah, but we won't do that. Okay, so a little bit of highlighting to the shrubbery, got our rocks in place. Now what's the color next? I think it will be Mr. Palm Tree over here. So I'm just thinking about how I should color its trunk. And I'm going to use a different brown because I want it to be set apart from the browns that I've already used. So I'm going to go to the Pigment palettes, and I have this color that I really adore, and it's in Tea Time, and this is almost like a purple, really, like when you play with it. It's funny brown, but I really love it and I use it a lot. It's kind of my go-to brown. I really, really love it. Like I said, it almost, when you look at it close up, it almost has like a purpley violet thing happening, like, yeah. You can't probably see it, but I've used it so many times I've noticed it. So I'm just filling in these segments of this tree. You can use whatever tool you find easiest to color with, because I'm just filling in and doing highlights, so there's no need for really any crazy tools while you're doing this. You can use technical pen if you find that easiest. The marker would also work. You could use the pencil, but if you wanted it to be completely filled in, you would probably have to go over it a couple times. I'm just using the airbrush because I find when you're layering colors, I find they blend really nicely, especially when you're doing grayscale. So that's why I'm using it. And no need to rush, I'm just taking my time, coloring these stumpies. Just kind of want to add a fun tidbit of information here. I'm actually coloring on a very, very old antique desk. It looks a little bit rough. That is why. It's definitely probably 3 times my age. But I was told not to redo it as it will decrease the value. It's actually an old writing desk. Just a fun fact. So I'm just shading in the back of this trunk where the dark kind of is. The light isn't really hitting the back, right? You gotta remember that. So I won't be doing too much highlighting on this trunk, suffice it to say. Maybe around some of the edges I'll do maybe a little bit of lighter. Maybe, you know, not under there. Just like near the edges. These palm trees are making me want to go on vacation. Who wants to come? So I'm just going to go over it with just like a lighter white too. I want it to pop a bit. I don't want a very stark highlight. Like I said, this is the back of the tree. Yeah, so you just get like that little highlighting area. It doesn't have to be, want it to look natural, right? So that's what we did, we're making it look natural. Now I'm going to do this little twiggy thing going up, and then I'm gonna continue on and do the top of the palm tree there. So I just want to fill in this area. Just gonna grab my green and fill in where I think there's foliage. It's kind of a eclectic sketch back here, so just kind of filling in what looks like foliage to me. These parts up here definitely do. I was talking more about the base of the boat there. To me, it could have been either sand or foliage. And it's always good to zoom in when you're doing these small little areas. it allows you to obviously be more accurate, right? And if you want to stay in the lines and you want a clean picture, then zoom in. It's also much easier. I think I've probably said this before, but it's definitely easier to draw straight lines when you're zoomed as well. Just a little fun fact for you. If you're into doing freehand, or you like adding stuff to your pictures where you'd like to make a line for whatever reason, it is easier to do when you're zoomed in. So I'm just going to continue to fill these leaves here. I haven't been using a lot of tools, I will apologize for that, but I don't need a lot of tools for a picture like this. I really honestly don't. The most where I could have used the tools would have been the background where I did the sunset. So otherwise this part, it's just really coloring it in. I'm not really trying to add any super special effects or anything. I'm just trying to make it look somewhat, have some hint of realism and light reflection. Okay, so there, I colored in my Twiggy Wiggies. Now I'm just going to grab this to do a little bit of highlighting, but not much. As this is behind the boat, I really shouldn't be doing anything, but I do want it to stand out in pieces. Highlighting and shading will always add depth to your picture. If you're looking to add depth and you want to get some hint of realism, always remember to shade and highlight. It makes all the difference in the world. It really, really does. And if you're not sure how to highlight or shade, watch tutorials like this or other ones, and they're really, really helpful to get you where you want to go with your work. Okay, so there's some light shading I did. Just kind of want to fill that in a bit. Okay, so we did our tree trunk, we did the island, we did the rocks, we got the sand going. Now let's do the leaves. Now I'm gonna pick out, I'm gonna use the roller rink greens for this. I want a different green. I don't want the same greens I used down low. I want something different. And I'm just gonna fill it in with this green I got going here from the palette Roller Rink. I really enjoy coloring by hand as well, and I find that when you do both, you can really broaden your skill sets, and you see coloring differently. That kind of just came out of nowhere, but I was just thinking about something I colored that was similar to this, but I colored it by hand. Way out of left field. So I'm just gonna finish filling in these leaves. There's nothing too tricky about it. I'm just trying to get my base color down before I do my shading and highlighting for this plant, this palm tree plant. just wanted to see how it looked from far away. I might be putting this green in, but there's going to be some dark shades going over top. But my analogy behind this is when I put my shading down, this bright green, or this brighter green I should say, will still shine through my shading. That was my thinking on the subject anyway. We're just going to continue filling these leaves. I'm almost thinking that I need to go back to my brown and bring this trunk up higher here. I'm not going to worry about that right now. For now, I'm just going to finish coloring these guys. So I'm just filling in this last leaf, and then it's going to be shading time. Just going to color match there. I have a feeling that should still have been purple. Whenever I make mistakes, you just kind of tap. You don't want to press the back button and go that far back and color match. It's harder to do on darker grayscales, but on a grayscale like this, usually pretty okay. As long as you don't do it over a place that's really sparse and shaded. So I'm gonna bring that same green, but I'm gonna bring it down. I'm gonna bring it down, down, down. So it's a deep color. And I might not need to actually use the brown because I'm shading these so dark. And all where these little dark parts are that are already kind of sketched in the tree, use those as pinpoints to where your shading should be. Kind of follow along with it. You can add into it too. You don't have to always follow along with it perfectly. You can freehand your own details and make it your own style, but it's good to use them at least as hints, as hint points. Then I'm going to use this light green, and I'm just going to plop it in the lighter areas for highlight. just want this light color kind of, the sun would be just hitting the edge of the leaves, eh? On a beautiful sunset. Okay, then I'm going to go here and I'm going to grab my dark brown out. I am going to shade it a little bit more because I'm just not completely satisfied with it. Okay, so I'm gonna say that that's pretty good. I could even add brighter, like this lime funky super fun green. I could even do a little bit of that. Why not? Small doses though. Don't overdo it. Using a thin line across the very tips and edges of the leaf. Do not overdo this green. I mean, you can if you want to, but I'm just suggesting not to. But whatever you feel. It's your picture, have fun. These are just suggestions or guidelines that might help you. So I'm just adding it to the tips, some of these leaves. What a fun summery pic this is turning out to be. Okay, and I think that's about good for the palm tree. I don't think I really need to do too much more to it. Now we're going to move on to our boat. Now I've been thinking about this as I've been coloring. Oh, I noticed I missed the leaf here, so I'm just going to touch it up. But I've been thinking while I've been coloring, what color should this boat be? I was thinking, should I do a fun funky color, or just make it like a normal kind of brown? And you know what? I'm still undecided about this. I'm almost thinking I want to do it like a red. But I don't know if that's too much for the picture. Let's try it out and see. So I'm gonna just grab maybe this vintage sweater red, and I'm actually going to use a different tool now, and I'm going to use, where are you? There you are. I'm going to use wood. I'm bringing the opacity all the way up, and I'm just going to see how this red wood looks. So dark you can't even really tell I'm using the wood setting, but this boat is definitely wood. So I thought, why not use the wood brush? It's actually a really cool brush, especially if you're trying to like add a table, like under a portrait for instance. You can accomplish that really easily by using the wood and then just shading and highlighting it a bit. It's a really awesome tool that I really should start using more. I do use it, just there's definitely more possibilities with it than I use it. And I'm actually digging this color of red, so I'm going to stick with it. So I'm just going to color in my boat this cool red color. Raising my brush size a bit for these bigger areas. Just with the wood, it's almost like a straight brush, It doesn't have curves to it, so you kind of have to watch when you're coloring with it. It's very straight. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it just takes practice on coloring large areas, especially if you're trying to color in areas. It's really not that bad though. Like I said, it is one of my favorite brushes to add the wood element to pictures. Really do like it. Very cool idea. So I'm just going to finish coloring in this boat. And I'm going to add some shading, of course, and highlighting, of course, in a moment. So you see, now that I put the wood down, I can actually see the wood kind of coming through. You can see the grain where it kind of is going down. Awesome. That looks amazing. I love it. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to actually highlight it with this lighter red right now. Well, maybe, you know what? I'm going to step back for a moment. I actually should shade first, pardon me. So I'm going to go to my airbrush for my shading. About 9% or so. We'll see how it lays down. Dark, all the way dark. And I just want to shade towards the base of my boat. And in areas like this. Get your shading in and then do your highlighting. And I'm using all the areas in this particular instance that are hinting where shading should be. Actually going to just color in here a little bit. Okay, and now I'm gonna highlight. So I'm gonna grab this. And I'm just gonna do random strokes with the bright red. Or not, it's not really a bright red, but it's a brighter red than what I've used. So I'm just gonna add some random highlighting strokes. I'm just kind of adding little scribbles. But they're thought out scribbles. So I'm just adding those in. A couple random highlights around the boat. Right there maybe. Up here. There, we're getting like definite, well-oriented shading and highlighting on this boat now. Now I'm going to take it a step further and go to my favorite actual bright red. It's in the red palette. There it is. And I'm just going to add a little bit more. And then I'm going to travel down a little further and grab my white. And just kind of add some, don't want too much of the white, I just want a little bit. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, now the last thing I need to color is the oar. Now that's not going to take very long. I'm just going to use a deep brown. I don't necessarily have to put it on any special brush. It's a very small area. I was thinking about doing it wood, but I don't even think it would make an impact enough to use the wood, so I'm just going to fill it in. And then I'm just going to add a highlight towards the edge. And that's really it for the oar. So we got some pretty nice colors happening here. I see I made a mistake, which happens. So I'm going to color match and just blend it out. Not a big deal. Easy enough to fix. And I was thinking about actually adding a little bit more highlighting to the sky anyway to deepen the effect. So I'm going to bring out my plasma brush. Kind of want this orange. Just want to add a little bit more sparkle here. And there you have it. I think that's a pretty complete picture, but I'm just going to try one more thing before I complete here. Just want to see if I can close up these edges nicely with the black, but if I can't, I'll just leave it. just playing here. I just want to get the right amount of shading. And then maybe what I'll do is stretch this blue all the way across. Wasn't finished edge to edge, but I just didn't care for it because basically because of the background. The background is edge to edge, but down here isn't, so it was kind of just a question of how I was going to alter it a bit. And I think that's actually perfect. Alright, so there you have it. A beautiful beach scene. Hopefully you think so as well. Sunset, water, we did all the groundwork, the foliage, and the boat. So I hope you enjoyed joining me for this summer scene that I have created today. This is Breanne from Pigment, and I will see you again. Thanks everybody, and have a great day.